Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Viewers Club Movie Reviews. My name is Megan.
My name is Tess.
And my name is Lukas.
We're just, hitting all the classics, apparently, this year,
Yes.
All of the top tier movies, because we're hitting another classic, and that is The Silence of the Lambs. I should also say, Happy Valentine's Day, everybody.
Nice segue.
Nice.
This is Silence of the Lambs. What is it? I didn't even write that down. It's their anniversary.
Nice.
It's their movie anniversary. It's like I want to say their 40th, I think.
Yeah, I think so. Well, it came out in 91, so I think they're 30th?
30th.
Math.
30th.
Yes.
30th.
I was
Math.
doing math in my head, and I was like, can I trust this?
Better than my math. Anyway.
Can I trust my own math?
Anyway, Silence of the Lambs is turning 30 years old, and yes, it did come out on Valentine's Day, so it's so romantic.
It is.
So
It's the most romantic movie you could ever watch.
Romantic comedies ever, to be honest.
Oh, it's so good.
But we'll talk about that later.
We'll get there in a minute. Let me just, for those of you who haven't seen the movie, give a brief synopsis of the story. When a serial killer is on the loose, FBI agent in training, Clarice, is recruited to get the help of notorious serial killer Dr. Hannibal Lecter, aka Hannibal the Cannibal, to get in the mind of the killer known as Buffalo Bill. So, if you don't want spoilers, that's your spoiler-free synopsis. You gotta check this movie out. If you're huge into horror or thrillers or murder mysteries or serial killer movies or TV shows or whatever, this is... it's a good one.
This is chef
Go
kiss.
watch it. Very, very good. It's very, very disturbing. So, I do want to state this. There is a lot going on in this movie with, layers and, visuals and, what the story is about with, hidden meanings behind things. There's a lot. So, we're definitely not going to be getting into all of it in this episode, but we will be getting into at least our very own personal feelings and things of all that. But I would like to ask you guys if you can recall the first time you saw this movie, or if your feelings for it have ever changed or anything. What is your feeling about this movie with every aspect of it put together? Tess, I know this was your first time watching it. What did you think about it?
Yeah, it was my first time watching it, what was it, last week, I think? And for what would this be? A thriller horror film?
Yeah, a psychological thriller, pretty
yes.
much.
It was more so disturbing to me than it was, scary.
Get that.
Which I'm not sure if I should be concerned about that.
But, this is fine.
But yeah, I really enjoyed seeing, all the different characters and, how they interacted with each other, Jodie Foster and Anthony Hopkins, how...
Mm-hmm.
Okay, their characters kind of gave me anxiety because I was like, is she gonna turn into the bad guy or?
Yeah, it's
whose side is she on? yeah, it was really
the
good.
chemistry is so good, and the
I
character
enjoyed it.
motivations are just so out there that it makes the story so believable. It's very very good.
Yeah.
Lukas, what did you think the first time you saw this movie?
I was absolutely in love with it, in that it was so different from what I had seen in the past, because I don't know that many films that really just, like Tessa said, disturbed me to my core in a way that it was definitely horror, but the horror was not, well, for one, it wasn't supernatural. For one, the horror was just the human element of everything and what these humans were capable of doing. And with slasher films and that's it still, even though that's kind of in the same vein, why would they do this, it's this was on such a more psychological level, and the
Very
the
mind
scenes
games,
yes, it was a mind game in and of itself as you were watching it unfold. So I thought that was fantastic. I saw it for the first time, I want to say 2 years ago. It was on
Mhm.
recommendation of Megan, so thank you so much for recommending that.
You're welcome.
Nice.
So yes, it's obvious that I'm the one who's seen it the longest out of this group. I think I saw it back in high school.
Mhm.
And again, this was one of those movies that I watched on the recommendation of several websites where I was like getting really into horror movies and
Mhm.
stuff. And this was one that really was like on every single list, you know? So I was like, so I didn't really know what to expect from it. So when I watched it, I was like, this terrifies me. Um, I watched it when nobody else was in my house. It was late at night. And at the
Goodness.
very end, I was in the living room, curled up in a blanket, watching it, you know, hiding
Aw.
behind the blanket, you know. At the very, very end, when I'm like, oh, that was so good, the door to our apartment opens.
No.
And it
no.
scared the shit out of me. I
Oh,
was.
no.
Oh my god.
It was just my family getting back from something, but it was
Oh
like,
my
oh,
God.
God.
the timing could not have been better.
Scurry up to your room, lock the door.
Right.
Oh my
No.
gosh.
Yeah. So like, I watch this movie every year around Halloween because you know it's so good. I usually try and watch it when nobody else is around, mainly because it's like I like the feeling of not feeling secure when watching this movie. Like this movie already
That helps with
throws security out the window,
Yeah.
but it really, really helps to get drawn into it when nobody else is there. So it's
Mm.
just one of my favorite murder mystery stuff. It's the reason that I love shows like Criminal Minds or Mindhunter. You know,
Yeah.
I love getting into the mind of really disturbed people.
Yeah.
It's very weird. It's yeah. So getting back to everything that we have to talk about, I would first like to talk about the story because I feel like there are a lot of murder mysteries. There are a lot of serial killer biopic stuff. You know, but this one in particular, Buffalo Bill is the main serial killer, which is very interesting
Mhm.
when you already have another serial killer
Right.
who's 10 times more terrifying than
Right.
Buffalo Bill is. And he's behind bars the entire time. Well,
Yeah.
majority of the time.
Mhm.
Um,
And yet he's almost a more
so,
horrifying presence than Buffalo Bill.
exactly. He's
Yeah.
very, very looming. It's very, very good. I wanted to throw out there that Buffalo Bill actually isn't based on any particular serial killer, but he's actually based on 3 serial killers.
Mm.
He's based on Ted Bundy, Ed Gein, I don't know, and Gary Heidnik. Please don't come kill me. He's based on 3 serial killers because there are a lot of elements from how he, you know,
Mhm.
hunts women
Right.
in it. And it's very, very disturbing. But I think the thing that I love the most about this story is the fact that the FBI
Mhm.
is using another serial killer to hunt down
Yeah.
a current one.
Mhm.
Because of that whole concept that serial killers just know when there's another serial killer, you know, or they just
Right.
know who it is, you know. It's very interesting. And I wanted to get your guys' opinion on the story. The fact that there's the use of a untrained, kind of not an untrained FBI agent, but not as well trained as her superior, you
Mhm.
know. The use of having not one but 2 serial killers, and kind of like the use of mind games. Like, how does that like
Right.
make this story really good in your opinion, or does it not make the story
The
good?
story
But
was
considering,
awful,
I would
and
assume.
the movie deserves to go down in history as one. No. So I loved that. I've loved the originality of that, and that I think they took a lot of tropes and they took a lot of ideas of what a horror movie could be and just kind of turned it on its head. I just hit my mic. But they really, I really liked Hannibal's like role in the entire film and how he, it's, you know, he's the serial killer, but I think, you know, the FBI is like, okay, but they kind of know that he might be somebody that they could actually communicate with and get something useful out of him, because, you know, he's very creepy, but like he can, you know, he's not
He passes as a sane person,
Yes.
which is almost worse.
yes, that's all. Yeah, it's like he's very you know, he's polite and he can hold a normal conversation with you, he just eats people. Everyone's got their flaws, and we just have to accept it.
Oh my gosh.
So I really liked that they did that, and I really liked the emotional journey of Clarice and kind of following her throughout the story, and just every bit of it was so original and unfolded in such a unique and gripping way.
Mm-hmm. Tessa, what
Yeah.
about you? What'd you
Yeah.
think of the story?
Yeah, so like going off of what Lucas said, it was a very intriguing story, and at the very beginning I kind of had like doubts about them sending Clarice because one, she was like very inexperienced and they're throwing her to like the most powerful like evil person. And so with that being done, I kind of felt like there might be some corruption in the FBI, and so I had like suspicions out for her superiors. But yeah, the whole story was it reminded me a lot of like a chess match. Just like it was very strategic
definitely.
with like every move. So, and then there were just like few plot twists in there too. So
I
spice.
I completely agree with everything you guys are saying. There's so many like great elements thrown into it. Kind of having seen it so many times and have done a little bit of research on it myself, there are a lot of things that really stand out to me now. One of the things I did find out was the reason the FBI actually, if I understand this correctly, the FBI supported the making of this movie because they wanted to get more women to join the FBI. So having Clarice be the lead, is really good. What made it even better, I think, is the use of gender in it. It's very subtle. Like, women are the ones being the victims, and a woman is hunting and actually ends up finding the killer, It's very, very cool. And some of the tricks that they do is, like, there's that scene where Clarice is heading up to her superior's office, and she's in an elevator surrounded by men who kind of look down on her, She's literally the shortest person in there, and they're looking down on her being a woman, And the same thing is done when she's talking with Lecter's crazy psychotic therapist, basically, is that he basically is trying to make sexual advances on her, So, like, the men don't see her as either a threat or, like, significant in power and stuff. And it's, like, a very, very subtle way of throwing it in there, The main story is about these, serial killers and a psychotic, like, chess match and, like, who is smarter and who's outsmarting who, It's very interesting. And then I just love that extra fact that there's a look at women within it. And I think it's very, very interesting, and I absolutely loved it.
Yeah.
You mentioned the FBI is in kind of supporting the film, and that made me think of my dad did FBI. I guess it's like, so first, he's not an FBI agent, but he went to like their training academy for a couple months, and while he was there, he had to take a couple classes, and one of them was on the mental state of serial killers, and so they went into the place where Clarice worked. I can't remember what that department's called.
Behavioral Analysis Unit is my guess.
Yes. So they went...
Thanks, Criminal Minds.
Thank you, Criminal Minds. So my dad had to take some classes there, and he went down there, and just fun fact, he said that when they walk down there that they have a life-sized statue of Hannibal Lecter with his little mask and a cage standing there to greet you at the door. Surrounded by basically drawings of real serial killers. But I thought that was a cool fact that the FBI loved that film so much. They're like, you know what? Hannibal Lecter, you belong here. Come. This is could be your greeting.
Yeah, I think during the production of the film, the FBI, I guess they talked with the FBI and stuff and wanted to get their support on it, and then they're like, we'll support you in this, and then it just helped that they were trying to get more women into the FBI at the time, so yeah, it's really good. And then going back to Clarice, I'd love to talk about the acting in this, because we're not short on great actors in this movie. We are not. There are a lot of incredible actors in this. So I wanted to see if there were like moments that were just like purely like beautiful acting along with storytelling for you guys.
Yes.
All of it.
All of it.
I mean, yes, for sure, but
Yeah.
a moment.
As far as, I mean, Hannibal and Clarice, just their chemistry, like we mentioned earlier, was phenomenal.
Yeah.
And I read something that talked about Hannibal when he was trying to do research and when he was trying to figure out how he wanted to play his character. He said that he studied snakes to get into the role, and so whenever he held his, whenever in a lot of his scenes he doesn't move his head and he stares directly at Clarice, blinking very little or not blinking at all, and he said that was kind of in an attempt to psychologically give off creepy vibes. So I mean, I thought his portrayal of obviously Anthony Hopkins is a god. But Jodie Foster, I mean, I don't really remember her from other things. Like I knew that she directed stuff and I knew that she was in a lot of other stuff, but this is probably one of the first things that I've seen her in, where she's had this big of a role, and it was really interesting because she really portrayed a really real individual that was, really intelligent and had a really great idea of what was happening, but kind of pulling off that, being scared whenever you're in the presence of Hannibal frickin' Lecter, trying to communicate with him and trying to like hide that being intimidated and trying to like play his own game. I thought that was, just fantastic chemistry and fantastic acting.
And you're talking about research for characters and stuff. And a lot of these actors did some research. One of the most interesting ones that I've read an interesting fact on it. The actor who plays Jack Crawford, so Clarice's superior during this, Scott Glenn, to do research, he listened to interviews with actual serial killers as they described what they did, and apparently, and this is like completely like understandable, he broke down crying after several, because it's so dark and there's so few people in the world that I think could do that kind of job for a very long time, you know what I mean, because it's very disturbing. But yeah, I think it really, and as far as Scott Glenn went with his Jack Crawford character, I think he did very, very well. I think that as far as like minor characters went, like Jack Crawford, Frederick Tilton, Barney Matthews, Catherine Martin, all of, and Buffalo Bill, of course, all of these air quote minor actors when it comes to it, because obviously Clarice and Hannibal are the leads in it. I think that they all did phenomenal. I think that they were sitting there like, if we have these two great of actors, we need every other actor to be just as good as them. So I just loved it.
Everyone pulled
Tessa,
their weight.
what about you?
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with you guys. I think my favorite acting moment with Clarice was when her and Hannibal made that deal that she would like give up some of her quid pro quo. Yeah, whatever that is. And,
so well written, that scene.
It was really intense. So good.
Absolutely.
Gosh. I realized that I didn't really answer your question. Oh, yeah. Sorry. I realized that I just kind of talked about the actor. I was like, huh.
I mean, that's fine too. I'm down with that. It's really hard to choose a really good scene in this because a lot of the scenes are just so well done. But to kind of like wrap this episode up, I'm going to talk about two different things. The first thing is I wanted you guys to know CBS is making a show called Clarice.
Ooh.
Really?
And it follows the story of Clarice after Hannibal Lecter. So after the events of this movie. That being said, there are also two other movies that exist. The first one is Hannibal, which takes place almost immediately after the events of Silence of the Lambs. And then there's I believe it's a prequel. I can't remember. It's either a prequel or it is the third in the line, and it's called Red Dragon. Both of which more or less focus again on Hannibal Lecter. The second, I haven't seen the third one because I didn't enjoy the second one. But with the idea that they're making a series for Clarice, what do you guys think of that? Because I have my opinion on it, but I'd love to hear your guys' opinions on the idea of following Clarice without Hannibal. Obviously, they'll probably bring in Hannibal at some point, but for the most part, it's focused more closely on Clarice.
I think I'd watch it for sure. Yeah. I mean, do we know who's playing Clarice yet?
Yes, Rebecca Breeds is playing Clarice.
Well,
yeah.
I mean, I think it would be interesting to follow her and like see what kind of storyline they come up with.
What about you, Lucas? What do you think?
I think I think it would be a really cool storyline. I'm interested to see what they do with it in terms of like what kind of stories that she deals with, or what type of what type of issues that she deals with. Because I'm sure there'd be like she'd be dealing with stuff that happened in the previous film, and Silence of the Lambs, kind of recovering, I guess, mentally from all the stuff that she went through, and then kind of carrying that over to another case. So I think that would be fun.
Yeah,
I think that would be really fun to explore. I guess we just have to wait and see. It's
it's coming out February 11th. I'm not discouraging people from seeing it, but I have opinions based on what I've seen as far as the trailers go. I think I think personally, based on what I've seen on the trailers, this is my first initial thought. I'm not going after the actor. I'm not going after the story. I'm not going after anything like that. Personally, I think 30 years is a long time to wait for a series, you know. Personally, I wish they would focus on a different character outside of Clarice and maybe set it in modern times, so that way we could possibly have Jodie Foster in it as the original Clarice, you know? But based on what I've seen on the trailer, it deals with a lot of, she's still solving crimes, she's still working with the FBI. There's less subtlety on the fact that she's a woman working in the FBI. It seems to be heavily focused on the fact that she's a woman, you know, doing a quote man's job, you know, which I'm not a big fan of the lack of subtlety. I really enjoyed the subtlety in Silence of the Lambs because it's not overbearing and it still gives her power. It's not becoming a feminist movie, even though it is a feminist movie. It's not trying to be. And then the other issue I have is that it's weird to see Clarice without the whole Hannibal Lecter thing. I think it's very interesting that they're going to be focusing on her character. It looks like she's going to be dealing with some PTSD from it, you know? But again, I think it's a long waited for kind of thing to come out, and I think that they should have just picked a different character and maybe had Jodie Foster appear in it, you know. That's my personal opinion. I have seen the trailers.
Yeah.
I do too.
And I think it's the one thing that I don't like, and it is very hard to tell because the trailers that I have seen, she doesn't talk very much, but it doesn't sound like she has that Virginian accent like Jodie Foster had, which
strange
is a very
kind of, like,
down
part of
side because if it wasn't like explicitly mentioned in the script with Anthony Hopkins, you know, if Anthony Hopkins didn't say specifically, you know, about her accent, then I wouldn't have a big issue with it, but it is a very important part, and I don't know if it's because the actress has a more dulled down version of the accent or not, but I think it should have been closer to what Jodie Foster's was. Again, I haven't seen much of her talking, and I don't really know what the storyline is with it. All I know is that it's about Clarice and the FBI. Go see it. Let me know what you think. But personally, I get what you mean. I don't know. I don't think I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. It's kind of like, again, that conversation of Hollywood not necessarily going for original stuff, just kind of taking stuff that worked or stuff, you know, from stories that worked and recycling it.
Exactly. Finally, I'd like to leave us off with some more interesting facts about the movie.
Yes.
because I just want to, again, express how great this movie is based on some of the facts that I've learned about it. I've looked these up. I'll leave the IMDb link for the trivia facts in the description, so you guys can go check them out, because these aren't even half of the facts that are in there. These are just some of the more interesting ones. So this is Silence of the Lambs, to express how great it is the third movie to win the Big Five for Oscars.
Wow.
So it won Best Picture, Best Actor, and Best Actress.
Dang.
It won Best Director and Best Screenplay.
Wow. That's
Wow.
awesome.
And the two,
Yeah.
Yeah,
did not
and what
know
made it
that.
even more interesting, is Anthony Hopkins was on screen for only 24 minutes, roughly, between 20 and 25 minutes on screen. It's the second shortest for Best Actor.
Wow.
So,
Legend.
Yeah.
legend.
I mean, holy
Iconic. The other movies that came before it that won
crap.
the Big Five were It Happened One Night and One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest,
Okay.
Oh, cool. Okay.
which are both
Wow.
deserve to
Yeah.
to win.
Dang, yeah.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
it really won over people, and I think it really influenced a lot of murder mysteries and a lot of serial killer biopic
Yeah.
films as
absolutely.
well.
Definitely.
The movie was framed in Clarice's perspective. So to kind of give you an understanding of what that is, the director, Jonathan Demme, he purposefully had characters look at the camera when addressing or talking to Clarice.
Mm.
So what that means is when Anthony Hopkins is talking to Clarice, he's looking at the camera. When Frederick Chilton is talking to Clarice, he's looking at the camera. When Jack Crawford is looking at Clarice, he's looking directly into the camera.
Yeah.
So it's kind of it was very, very well done how he did that. And it's so subtle, but it adds so much tension to have the characters look at you, so it's so well done. It's just, when you go back and you watch it, you realize that every single character who is addressing Clarice looks specifically at her. It's
I gotta say that
so
that scene in the I don't remember what part of I think it's the later half of the movie, when Hannibal's locked up, not in his cell, but in a museum or some kind of bigger building.
in that cage.
Yes, and it's basically, it's where Clarice tells him about the lambs screaming and her childhood. That I could not move. That doesn't often happen, but when that scene happened, I was I was so tense and so anxious and so filled with just this horror of what was being explained and of the situation that I literally couldn't move, and I don't often experience that. So it's always really special when that happens. So I mean that
to give
and I think
to give her credit, if you listen in the background, you'll hear something hit the floor. What happened during that take? This is another interesting fact that I read about, but I didn't include. But since you brought it up, I have to. During that take, one of the PAs or something, I don't know, somebody behind the camera dropped a wrench during that scene, and she did not break character. It just she kept going, and it speaks to her talent. And then to give one more huge prop to Anthony Hopkins, because he deserves it. When he switched during one of their first interviews, when he's still behind the glass cage, he changes his accent to sound like hers, right? That was not scripted. That was not planned.
Wow.
That was completely him.
Whoa.
And her reaction to it was pure, genuine,
Oh my gosh.
freak out, because it was, so credit where credit is due.
Wow.
This movie is very well done. It's very well made.
Yes.
And one more thing I do want to bring up, because I think it is very, very important that we do talk about it, is the LGBT community. So,
right.
To be very, very fair, the LGBT community doesn't, as far as I can tell, this is like purely like personal for a lot of people, and I'm making a general statement. It isn't true for everybody, but I do want to bring it up. And the LGBT community did not like this movie, at least when it came out, if not still now. And it is very, very fair.
Yeah,
it is depicting somebody who could or could not be transgender, you know, being very, very violent. And I want to say that is not what the LGBT community deserves to be represented at. But I also will quote, not word for word quote what the director said, but will say, surmise kind of what he did say. Buffalo Bill, in his mind, is not a transgender man or a transgender woman. He is a confused, psychotic individual, and that is how he depicts him. Not a part of the LGBT community at all. But I do think it is fair to bring up the fact that it is still a movie that has a negative impact on people in the LGBT community. Yeah. So for anyone who, like, for some reason believes that people in the LGBT community are violent or could ever be violent, no. They're not. This is just one depiction of a psychotic person who has no connections to the LGBT community, in my opinion. But I also respect...
Not LGBT, you know.
Puts the lotion on its skin, or it gets the hose again.
Exactly.
The other thing I do want to mention, because we are talking about not necessarily mental illness, I also want to bring it up because I think they get depicted horribly in films as well. People who have mental illnesses are usually not violent people. Hollywood just likes to depict people with mental illnesses as violent because they are different than we are. So, after talking about that movie, I thought it'd be fair to bring up some issues that it does have, especially more modern issues that are being brought up. So, there it is. We do not support the depiction of LGBT people and people with mental illnesses as being violent individuals. We don't support that, but I do personally believe that Buffalo Bill is not a part of the LGBT community. I think he is depicted as a deranged psychopath.
Right. And I mean, that clearly,
violent,
that wasn't the intention.
Angry individuals. So it wasn't the intention, but I do think it was fair to bring up because it is something that should be addressed, you know?
Right.
So, anyway, now that that's out of the way, do you guys have any final thoughts you'd like to say about the movie before we say goodbye?
I would like to bring up one more scene that I really enjoyed. It was the night vision one where she's in the house in the complete dark. Oh my gosh. My anxiety for her. And he was just right there, like, watching and, like, following her. Oh my gosh. I couldn't imagine.
Yes. No, I would be petrified. I'd be planted to the floor. Like, I wouldn't be able to do it. It's just, so good.
Well done. Okay.
Lucas?
Yeah, I mean, that was horrifying. There's so many scenes in this film that are just horrifying in and of themselves. And, like, not a lot of action happens. It's just the terror of everything. It's insane. Right. Yeah.
This is, like, the definition of true horror. Yeah. As Alfred Hitchcock defined it, horror is tension. You know? Really good horror is keeping that tension. You know? It isn't releasing that tension through, like, jump scares or something. It's holding it and keeping the audience there the entire time. And this movie does a phenomenal job of that. So if you have stuck around, please watch this movie. You may know how it ends, or you may not know how it ends, or whatever, you know, but I guarantee you watching it is a completely different thing. Enough said. We might have to do another episode on this to talk about some other facts about this movie or some other things, you know, so who knows? Maybe we'll do that. We'll find out. Thank you guys so much for listening to this episode of The Viewers Club. My name is Megan.
My name is Tess.
And my name is Lucas.
And I hope you all have a lovely Valentine's Day.
Yes, happy Valentine's Day.
I'm single, so it doesn't matter. Happy anniversary to Silence of the Lambs. Congratulations on everything you guys have accomplished with this film. And I hope you all have a good.
Have a good, everyone.
Have a good.